Welcome to Off the Cuff. I'm your host, Sean Hancock. This is the podcast where we examine those moments in our lives where things didn't go where we planned. So we've had to respond in the moment off the cuff. In this episode, we're talking with Ryan Self from Amarillo, Texas. He grew up in St. Louis, where he notably founded the improv group BBQ Kitten. He moved to Los Angeles after graduating, where he now writes for film and TV. He acts in video games, commercials, and film, and has performed in improv shows all around the country. In this episode, we talk about leaving a legacy, having confidence in all situations, and how to flip the script while continuing to work towards your moment. Welcome. Ryan Self, thank you so much for joining me on Off the Cuff. I am so excited that you're here with me. And it sounds like, I don't even know if you can reveal some of the news yet. David Magadoff had told me like, hey, I don't know if he can say this yet, but you'll check in with him.
There's some things I can say, there's some things I can't. So
okay, cool.
Very cool.
Well,
like that.
I want you to share with me only the things that you can't share.
Great.
So that people can only come to the Off the Cuff podcast.
Exclusives only, yeah.
Exclusives only. Oh my gosh. So Ryan, I want to start with when I look over the people that I know, the friends of mine that I've done acting or improv with, you've been the guy who's been so consistent and like writing daily, going for it, setting goals. Like I remember you and your writing buddy like set aside this like this bottle that shall not be opened until you sell your first bit of writing.
I'm impressed you remember that.
Oh, of course.
No.
Of course. And I remember you were working with me one time, and I think you got the news that an episode of it was Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. That was our first, which was funny because it was a bottle of wine, and we were so broke that I think it was like a $10 bottle of wine, which we're like, whoa, big deal. And like when I finally did pop it open, it was not like wines that are $10 are not the ones you keep to age. Like I was like, oh, not very good.
not as sweet as you thought.
Yeah. But it was the metaphor.
Yes, it was the metaphor.
Yeah,
that's exciting. That's so cool. And it was the Tom and Jerry, not the movie that was put out, but the Tom and Jerry TV show.
Correct.
Which.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I watched some of the movie. It was not great.
So I heard. Yeah.
Those episodes, man. Oh, good stuff.
So good, man. Congratulations again. That's so exciting. That's like those of you who are listening to this, you probably grew up watching Tom and Jerry, right? And now my son, I get to introduce him to Tom and Jerry with the stuff you wrote, bro. How cool is that? It's crazy. It's so exciting. You're part of this like legacy. You know what I mean?
The first time I saw like the animatic of the very first episode, it actually like I got a little emotional because it was like these characters felt like celebrities to me. Because it is like Tom and Jerry, like I literally grew up watching them, and like, and so to be able to, it's like having like Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise on screen, and like they're doing what you're telling them to do, and you're like, this is crazy, like all of this, they're doing my play. Like it felt so cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
You could you share this story where it has to do with Star Trek and.
Star Trek. I have to think.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so I'll just share the story, and then you can
I love when people tell me stories that I've told them.
You're like, I totally forgot about that. That was really rad. So, you had done a voiceover for a Star Trek video game.
Oh, close. Battlestar Galactica.
Okay, Battlestar Galactica. So, which you love, like you're a fan.
Yes.
And then you get cast as a voiceover actor to do a voiceover for Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Like, how rad is that?
That was cool. And like because it's all like licensed by like Universal, it's part of the actual like canon of Battlestar. So like I exist as a character in the canon of the Battlestar universe, which is like, that's so cool. Like,
that is so rad.
Yeah.
Is that L. Ron Hubbard? Did he write Battlestar Galactica? Okay, good.
But maybe his spirit ghosted. I don't know.
That's hilarious. Anyways, what's something that what's one of your moments that was like you had no idea that something was wild was going to happen, and then it like you look at it now and you're like, oh my gosh, this just changed my life.
I mean, kind of my whole life has been that. I can think of a dozen examples. A lot of working in a creative field is having kind of the confidence to just put things out there and say like, I think this is the best I can do. I think it's good. I think it's worth it. And then you don't know if people are going to receive it or not. And like improv is great because you do get that immediate feedback, but almost every other art form has some kind of delay, and some of them are right. And movies are like you put your effort 2 years, 3 years into something before you ever hear the first like totally unbiased opinions of it. And so I feel like it's the same even when you're trying to get jobs, when you're pitching yourself, when you're writing stuff, when you're acting. And so it gets to the point where you start throwing so much out there that it all kind of is like, I don't know, I'm just doing. And whenever you get that feedback back that's really, really positive, it usually surprises you because you're just like, oh yeah, I forgot I was doing this for people. I just got so in the habit of just churning that I forgot that it like sometimes people really love it or really hate it. But the really hate it is more often like you get so many no's all the time that it's like, man, whatever. You have to develop a thick skin. So almost every great opportunity I've had has come as a complete surprise to me because it's just like, oh yeah, I forgot. That's like I did want to make that into a show. Oh, you want to make it into a show too? Cool. I was just writing.
So Ryan, are you saying that like you're such in the habit of creating that you're aware of the fact that as you put something out, it might be a no to the point where you're just doing it so much that the yeses surprise you? Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah. And I don't know if that is a cool thing or if that's really sad, but when you put it that way, it's like, but I enjoy it.
It's what's interesting being an artist and putting yourself out there, whether it's writing or performance, it's a risk. You're putting yourself out there for people to say, I like it or I don't like it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so some people will not put themselves out because they can't handle the I don't like it. Yep. Right. It's kind of the artist's plight of like, do you like it? Yeah. Oh, I do good art. I'm a good artist. I'm a good person. Right. Yeah. And if they don't like it, then you do the opposite where you're like, I'm bad. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I'm useless. Yeah.
I'm useless. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's all a lie. It's all perspective.
It is. And I think like they always say that, artists have to have really tough skin. And that's 100% true. But I also feel like it's more than just that. You have to have this kind of optimism that imbued in yourself to where you're like, I feel good enough about what I'm doing that I don't need the validation. Like I know a lot of actors that get into the business because they need validation. And most of them wash out because you just don't get enough to ever counteract your own, like all the no's, all the negative. And so you kind of have to have this the optimistic way of looking at it is that you have this internal belief that you are good. The pessimistic way of looking at it is you're kind of busted and you are like egocentric, like, I don't know, whatever, who cares? I like what I like. I think it's a little bit of both where I think most people that I know that are really successful artists have a confidence in what they're doing that they don't need the praise. It's nice, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary.
Yeah. Right. So you're saying if you're out there just for the praise, it's never going to fill you up.
It never will.
So yes. So you're coming from a space where you're bringing your own comfort or confidence with you. Would you mind sharing with that? Is that because you're a person of faith? Is that because you've What would you say what's your...
I think so. I mean, that's interesting because I think that there are people who, I think my faith influences it, but I don't think it's
like, what is the thing that allows you to be like, I feel I'm already validated in just who I am. So if you say you don't like my script or you don't like my improv or whatever it is you're working on, then you can be like, hey, that's okay. I'm still dishing it out for people.
Yes.
So.
I think I think people can grab that kind of self pride from a bunch of different ways. I think having a belief that like I have a God who loves me no matter what is so much easier than any of those other ways, where it's just like, oh yeah, I have a father who loves me. This is amazing. I don't need to like do anything to prove myself. I am who I am. I'm who he made me. Like, so that to me already is like easy, I guess. Like it just makes sense, where it's like that seems obvious. And I do think people who don't have that have to kind of twist in a little bit of knots sometimes to try to find some way to like justify their purpose in life and why they're here. Yeah. And that's a lot of times you see some really artsy artists that do that, where I feel like they go deep down the rabbit hole of like, what I'm doing is so important, which can be, but more often than not, like for me, I love entertainment. I love to entertain people. And so if I was trying to get my fulfillment out of just creating art, I mean, Tom and Jerry is awesome and so much fun, and I love that I do it, but I don't think I could ever be like, that was important. You know, when you hit it with that anvil, it really got me, man. Like, so what I love is that I can make people smile, I can make people happy, I can bring joy, and to me, that's a gift that I can give, that God has given me that ability to give to other people. And I just love making people smile, making people feel good, telling a good story. I just love a good story.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So,
two things are coming to my mind. Yeah. One is oftentimes when I'm teaching new improvisers, or people who want to do speaking or stand-up or something like this, the stage scares them, like getting out on stage and all the eyes on them. It frightens them, usually because of the validation. Like, will they like what I have to give? Will it be of value to them, or will they like me, right? And I heard a comedian say that when you take the stage, I think it was Michael Jr. who said it, don't come to get a laugh. Come to give an opportunity for them to have a laugh.
That's cool.
So isn't that cool? Just a flip of the script. Like, I'm not coming to receive, I'm coming to give.
Yep. Yeah, it's just a POV. Yeah. That's, man, there's so many improvisers that I feel like could hear that. Because when you notice someone who is being kind of like a stage hog or something like that, you realize it's because they just want to have that one good laugh. They want to get that love, that adoration and stuff, as opposed to someone who's okay to just do a one-liner that makes the whole scene pop. And then they're out. And after the show's done, you'll be like, I don't remember who even said that, but it was so funny.
Right.
Like, those are the people I love to work with.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of background. Yeah. So for those of you who are listening, you may not know that Ryan Self and myself we used to be in an improv group together in LA. And a lot of improv is yes-anding, listening to each other, responding to the last thing said. Excuse me. And there's something about this art form that allows us to fast-track relationship and care for your fellow person. Yep. So it's like, after a year of doing improv with Ryan, like, I felt like this was like a brother from another mother. Like, you know what I mean? You care for the person. You've had these shared victories and moments on stage that feel like honest to goodness, like real life, like trips on a mountaintop or something that no one can take from you.
All over the world together.
Right. Even though they were in scenes. Yeah. We were living in these stories that seemed to be like very real. You know what I mean?
I think there's two parts to that. One is that, you live so many stories together. Three parts. One is that you live all those stories. Two is that it's kind of a boot camp. I feel like anytime you go through some sort of trial with people, it bonds you. And there's no trial greater than getting up on stage in front of a bunch of people and being like, okay, I'm going to be funny now. It is, no matter how much confidence you have, it's still terrifying. It's a terrifying concept. I've bombed on stage and it's awful. And then the third is that if you're really doing improv right, you're listening and you're being vulnerable, and like you are really hearing the other person, which a lot of our life, I feel like we go through life not listening. You're always just like seeing everything from your POV, thinking of what you can add to it and all that stuff. It's very little receiving, and improv forces you to do that, and therefore on stage and off stage, you just hear more about your partners. And so like, I feel like some deeper facts about you than I would have if you and I were just like office buddies.
Right.
Because it would all be surface. And so you all automatically have this vulnerability and this sense of active listening. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild. That ability, that listening factor in improv is there's nothing quite like it. The only thing that I feel like I've been able to, that comes close to the kind of listening you have to do in improv is a Hebrew word called shema. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
So shema is like I'm listening with the intent of doing something with what I hear.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah. So and the Hebrews take it very deep. It's like it's part of a prayer. It's awesome. it's as if like I'm listening to be obedient. Wow. Is really what it is.
That's really
wild.
Cool. Shema.
Yeah. Shema, yes.
Nice.
Yeah. SHE with a little over it. And
that would be that'd be a good name for a podcast if you were going to rename this podcast.
Shema, baby. It's time to listen for real.
That's awesome.
That's funny. Yeah, that's wild. So Ryan, I know that there's something that's happened to you fairly recently that's exciting, and some of it you can't talk about just yet. Is there some?
I have a few things. So I can say that I optioned my very first feature, which is really cool. That's super fun.
That's exciting.
And
that's exciting.
Right now we're in strike, so nothing is happening.
Okay.
So it's like everything moved,
which is why,
and then stopped.
Okay.
Which is why I'm able to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, you're able to be here. Yeah, because otherwise you would be like, Sean, I have no time.
Yeah. But that was amazing, and it's up until like a month ago now. It was being read by some like huge name talent to try to attach, that's super cool to get an email of just like, who's reading it? What? So that's super fun. And then I can at least say I did. I can't give too many details, but I did sell a show that I created to Paramount Plus with Warner Brothers. So that's what I can say about it. It will be
exciting.
A year or two before anybody ever sees anything about it.
Sure.
But it's really, really cool.
Yeah. I love
and it's
it.
Gonna be live action and big budget, huge world globetrotty, like
love it
show. So
love it. That's
it's always
great.
Cool to like have someone say like, yeah, like your idea is cool. We'll give you like a teeny tiny stage in like a black box theater, and you're like, this is great. And then to have someone be like, your idea is cool. We're gonna give you like a multi-million-dollar budget, and you're like, what? Okay.
So I'm curious if you could speak to that a little bit, because there's something. Would you say that my wife and I wrote a novel using the principles of improv, right? So would you say that like some of your practice that you've been so consistent doing has just been, and even your background in improv, do you feel like that's just been a huge reason where you're able to produce such different bodies of work that one, of course you can create in the black box stage, but for someone to be like, now this guy gets story or character or whatever, like I'm willing to put millions behind it. Does that make sense? Like,
yes,
do you feel like it's all connected?
Yeah, there's a lot of different elements to that. Like you raise so many different thoughts. I have to try to keep them all like there. Because it's very, very true in many ways. One is that the improv just helps in general. Like a lot of writing is pitching, like either pitching your story to a studio exec or whatnot to like get it made, but also, especially with TV writing, you're usually in a group setting. So there's like a showrunner and then a bunch of other writers all on staff. And so to get the best idea possible, everyone's just pitching, which is basically like doing an improv show. Like you're all just kind of adding. It's a little bit less structured and less final performance, but it's the exact same thing. You're yes-anding in a room,
right?
So you get the best idea. So that 100% helps. I think also it's cool that I've found a lot of my opportunities have come from unexpected sources. So like, for example, there's an idea that we had crafted that was all about like Lewis and Clark, steampunk, alternate history story that was like intended to be this adult animation. And then the Tom and Jerry show read that and were like, oh yeah, you can write for like a little kid that like cartoon with characters that don't talk. Like, and it was a very dialogue driven script. So it was funny to be like, none of this actually matches what you think, but by looking at it, they were able to say, "Oh, you can craft story." It was exactly what you said. So therefore, you can do this other story. Right. So I do feel like I've bounced back and forth between drama and comedy, between like really high concept stuff to like really kind of like more broad, simple comedy, and I think all of that translates back and forth because when you find someone who gets story, you understand they get all story.
Right.
So those were the two big thoughts when you were saying that I thought, I'm like, yes.
Gotcha.
Then the third one was just the consistency of, so my writing partner and I wrote for probably 18 years straight of we'd work one night a week every single week. And so we have a massive body of work. A lot of it is like unusable, or we've just written better stuff. So it's like, whatever.
Right.
But as I've had a lot of recent successes, that has now, what's cool is there's 5 scripts that we have now that are in like we wrote 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that are all getting a resurgence right now. I have like a team that's like in love with 2 of the scripts. Then I was like, oh, those are really old.
That's
but
so
like,
cool.
They're still totally good. Like, okay. So it's kind of neat to think that, even though at the time we got really close to selling 2 of these projects, one was like 5 years ago, one was like 3 years ago, and we didn't end up selling them. And it was like, well, that's it. But it never really is.
Interesting.
Like when you're doing that kind of creative stuff, like, your life is creating a body of work. And so as long as you're doing something that you love and you still are kind of passionate about it, it can come back.
That's amazing. It's not like you had your shot at the plate and you were swinging for the fences and you missed it. Like you now have the opportunity, your home run's being brought back.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Everyone, when you see someone that goes from like 0 to 60 and you're like, oh, they were just an overnight success, like whatever, it never is an overnight success. There's always so much work behind it. The fastest rise is for actors. Like occasionally someone will come along and they're just the exact perfect role, and that's kind of what will like launch them in that moment.
Right.
But if they haven't put in the work before that, it'll peter out.
Right.
And it's very true for almost any other type of art form. Like you will like slave over all of this stuff. You'll have so many failures, and those failures are all how you learn, to the point when you finally get a great, amazing opportunity in the world sees like, oh, they're so amazing. It's because whoever it was has done a lifetime's worth of work to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on momentum? Because I've been experiencing where like something great happens and the eyes are on you in the same way where like you just, people are picking up your stuff to where they're like, what else you got?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And if you've got it, I happen to have that here.
Yes.
Right. It's preparation meets the opportunity. Right.
Yes.
Would you mind speaking to that a little bit?
I mean, you put it really well. It's hard to say it better than that, but it is that idea that momentum is huge, especially, and for better or for worse, in Hollywood, it is very much of like, what is the last thing you just did? And like everyone wants a hot new thing. And so the moment eyes do turn to you, they are instantly like, what else have you got? which like the very first time I had kind of an all eyes on me moment, my writing partner and I did like what's considered the water bottle tour, which is where you just go from like office to office and they give you, would you like some water? Yeah. Okay, great. And so you end the entire day and you're like, I have 15 waters. I'm going to go. I take 3 sips out of nervously.
I've never heard that. That's
very funny. So we did that. And I think back to it. I was just reflecting with my buddy, how it was like, we did the best we could in the time because we didn't know anything about it. And what it was we were very charming in the room and they were like, what else do you got? And we were like, nothing, but we got this one project, and they're like, yeah, we don't want that project. We want what the next one is. And we're like, because we were just so new. And fortunately, you get multiple bites at the apple, and we got to learn. But I think the lesson from that is that there are going to be huge seasons of your life where eyes are not on you, and it makes it feel during those times like, as an artist, like maybe I'm wasting my time. Like maybe I'm not actually good at this. It chips away at that internal like confidence. And I think if you can somehow frame it in your mind to say, this is just preparation. Like this is what I'm doing right now is preparing for the moment when eyes will be on me, and it's going to be nerve wracking and it's going to be testing. And if I haven't built a solid base, I will crumble and I'll have to like wait for another bite at the apple. And so it's cool to think of it more in terms of like, I'm in a prep phase, and prep phases are long, eyes on you are very short. Which is again why you cannot fulfill yourself by just waiting for an all eyes on you moment. Because you're only going to get it every once in a while. If that's what you're living for, geez, you're going to be disappointed more often than not.
That's wild. It just makes me think. I just recently had this opportunity to go to Utah to film for Dry Bar Unscripted. It's like this. Are you so Dry Bar?
I've heard of it, but I don't know. Yeah, give me more details.
So they do stand up. Okay, and it's like clean stand up. Cool. And and they have millions and millions of impressions. And so now they're doing Dry Bar Unscripted, which is their improv version of it.
Oh, cool.
And I got Recycled Minds got invited to come down to Utah to film these. And one of my buddies had said, who's been doing improv with me for over a decade. Yeah. He's like, this is like all the work that you've been doing for the last 20 years. This is a moment for that to get showcased or shined, kind of a deal. Yeah. So, so it's one of those things where it's like, things do not happen overnight. But if you're enjoying the process, like I get in Facebook, it'll pop up like, here's a memory from 7 years ago. And it's like, hey, there's a moment on stage that I was having a great time or teaching a class or whatever. Yeah. There's something about consistency where it compounds, and these opportunities, you don't get just, overnight success is not a thing. You have to develop this practice and this comfort with getting hit and getting back up and getting hit and getting back up. And I know that there's people who are watching this right now that need to hear that, that need to know that it's not all easy. It's not all sunshine and roses. Yeah. It's not all like, hey, we're picking up, eyes aren't on you yet, know?
Yeah. You're in a prep phase right now.
You're in a prep phase. Yeah. But you're going to get your moment, especially if you're consistent and you keep showing up. Yeah. If you're excellent, your skill makes a way for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's really it like we can't submit ourselves to something that's less than being our authentic full self. Like we can't to being less than excellent. Because I think we're made for that. I think we're made for more. Yeah. If you were to ask anybody, hey, do you want more out of life? Yeah. I bet you 100% of the people are going to be like, yeah, actually I do. Like, things are pretty great. You know, like, do you want more? Yeah, I kind of do. I think we're made for it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So just to encourage, people who are listening who are like, yeah, man, I've never been at that place where I've had momentum, maybe even this, like, how do you generate momentum? Does that make sense? Like,
yes. I mean, I think it's consistency. Yeah, it is. How are you Sisyphus pushing up the boulder on the hill? Like it's not running and slamming into it. It is just slowly and steadily taking one step after another step after another step. And so I think it's whatever routine you create, because life comes in all these like waves where you're just like, you're busy, this is happening. Like there's always something being kind of thrown at you. And I've found that if you don't create some sort of rhythm yourself, it's very easy to just be like, like for writing, like this month has been insane. I just can't write. And you always have some sort of excuse. And then you fast forward and it's 6 months later and you've written nothing or done nothing. And therefore there is no momentum. But by saying, you know what, I'm going to once a week, I'm going to 3 times a week, I'm going to have a morning routine where I blank, like filling in some sort of like consistent routine to where it just becomes second nature. When we did improv, it was a weekly, class. There would be a weekly class that we would take, and there was usually a weekly class that we would teach, you and I, and a lot of the others. And that consistency, I feel like made me good at teaching improv, made me good at improv. Just because I didn't ever excuse myself. I had to show up to class because I had people counting on me. That also is a huge, with writing, I had a writing partner for many of those years that if I was feeling sick or whatever, or I was just really stressed and I wanted to bail, it wasn't just my own life that I was affecting, it was someone else's. So if there's any way you can create that sort of, even if it's artificial, but that necessity with someone else where you're like, I don't want to let them down. For whatever reason, as humans, we have a lot more respect for other people sometimes than we do for ourselves, because we're like, like I can let myself down. Like, who cares? Eat of ice cream.
I was talking with David Magadoff recently, and he was talking. I wish I could remember exactly what he said, but it was this idea of like, the baby brings the bread, I think is what he said. The baby brings the bread, meaning. I hadn't either. Yeah. And I think it's this idea of like, if you've got a mouth to feed, a child to take care of, dude, you will do whatever it takes to make sure that kid is fed.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So yeah.
That's fun.
So to your point of like setting up something that shows that there's another person out there who's depending on me to show up and be excellent and give it my all, whether it's writing, whether it's working out, whether it's like your relationships, your faith, whatever it takes to show up and be everything that you've got. You're now a game changer in that person's life. And by having them as like an accountability buddy, right? There's a reason that it says iron sharpens iron, right? That doesn't feel good. You know what I'm saying? But it's necessary in order for us to get stronger, to get sharper.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's genius. I'm going to use baby brings the bread now. Which is
better watch out. You might have to start having kids.
I know, now. That's right. I've got two kittens. I got to feed them. They're both but also that like you can, even people who don't have kids or like, earlier stage of life where like, if you're a teenager, don't get a baby just so that you can.
Right.
I've got to do my homework, Mom. I need a baby.
Oh, no. Don't listen to that.
But like the idea that I've said this for a long time, by taking away any sort of safety net, it forces you to then not have a fallback plan. So when I moved out to LA, I was like, well, I want to write, I want to act, like maybe direct someday. I know how to edit, like all of these things. And so I thought maybe I get like a side jobs because I know all of these are like, long shots. And I never really did that. Every little like side hustle I did, I always made sure it was super temporary. Never got comfortable with anything. Made sure that I never had a backup plan that felt good. So that when times got hard, I just had to double down on the stuff that was like what I really wanted to be doing. And so there's something to be said about having no backup plan.
Absolutely.
Which is terrible.
Absolutely.
But,
Yeah, no plan B.
Yeah.
That means you only get to go with A.
Yeah.
You only get to go with what you're made for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so, which is important to know what you're made for. Like, know what your purpose is. What's your heart's desire? Like, press into that. That's fantastic.
Talking to a mutual buddy of ours, Jeff Brain, this last weekend.
Yeah.
About how he was like, yeah, wouldn't that be the dream job to just have like a job where you do like almost no work and get paid tons of money? Like one of his friends had that. And I was like, yeah, I guess kind of. I actually, like, my preferred method is to do what I love that I would do for free and eventually get to the point where people start paying you for it to where you're like, oh yeah, oh, that's going to sustain me. Okay. That's cool. Right. And he's like, oh yeah, I think you're right. I actually would prefer that. Like, and it's weird that we don't think in terms of like, of that. I know so many people that have jobs that allow them to then do their hobby or their passion, and they hate their jobs, but hey, you know what? It puts money on the plate. Right. It's not the metaphor. Money on the plate. Yeah.
Money on the table. Yeah. Food on the table.
A little avocado and some crushed pepper and money. But you know, it does that. But a majority of your life now is just doing something that you don't really love, but it pays the bills so that you can then do what you love. Okay. But what if you could do what you love, scrape by for a little bit of time until it gets to the point where people are like, oh yeah, you're actually good enough at this that I will pay you some money. And then there is no, like my hobby is my job. It's crazy to say that, but like I was talking about, like, will I ever retire? I don't think I ever will, because I would only
doing what you love,
then do more of what I'm currently doing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of a cool position to be in. For sure. Well, I've heard it said that if you can't do what you love what you do. Mm-hmm. Right. And Ryan, you and I could go on and on, which is why we're gonna pause right here and get you on for part 2. So thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. Thanks, and those of you who are watching, make sure, absolutely, my man, make sure you like and subscribe, especially if you want to catch more of Ryan's self right here on Off the Cuff. See you next time.